Hey, hi, good morning, and thank you. When you take a look at newspaper articles concerning Grand Canyon before the Atlantic and Pacific Railway began laying tracks in 1882, you see very few references to the place itself, and quite a few of them are not, well, they're fanciful, how to say. After the tracks are finished in 1883, you see the number of articles increase dramatically, and you see a marked increase in the quality of the content and things like that. So the first three outfitters I'm going to talk about, Julius Farlee worked out of Peach Springs in Diamond Creek. John Hance worked out of Flagstaff out near Grandview Point. And Bill Bass, I know some of you are going to disagree with this, but I don't think he was active out there at Havasupai Point until about 1891. Let's talk about, and this is where we are today, but it's the result of the second train that arrived in 1901. Let's talk about Julius Farlee first, because he was the first to offer tours and overnight lodging in Grand Canyon. Now, we don't know much about Julius Farlee. When the tagline on him is who? Who's Julius Farlee? Never heard of Julius Farlee. It would help if we had a photograph of Julius Farlee. If any of you, this is important, if any of you know of a photograph of Julius Farlee, the folks at the museum would really like to have it, and I would like to see it also. This is the only photo I've been able to locate. He's in here somewhere. I don't know where. This guy, whoops, hang on. This guy has an X over his head. This guy has an X over his head. Maybe that's Young, maybe that's Farlee, who knows? Not me. I would suggest that the birth of Grand Canyon tourism actually, the birthday was actually April 2nd, 1883, because that's the day Julius Farlee recorded the Diamond Creek Toll Road. After that, he began taking passengers into Grand Canyon to spend the evening. Now, in 1885, between 83 and 85, you can see Farlee was fairly busy. The county assessor valued his road at $1,000 in 1885. That's the equivalent of some real pocket change today. Okay, but in 1888, the value of that road had dropped to only $100, and that's because John Hance was active at Grandview Point by then. Most of Julius Farlee's lack of business was how to say Farlee's fault, not to point the finger at him. I don't think he was really organized to be a businessman like that. He was involved in many, many activities around northern Arizona. The hotel here just seems to be one of those things. But even though he tried hard and had a great chipper attitude, his hotel was just a board shack that sat out in the sun all day long. And after the 6 or 8 hour buckboard or stagecoach ride to it, the only two things, well, he had three activities. One, you could have dinner, which was succotash or something. I mean, hardly anything. Or you could hike up 2,000 feet to the top of Diamond Peak, where visitors were asked to put their business cards in there. Now, here's an assignment for all you folks who surreptitiously go up to the top of Diamond Peak. Have a good look around for that bottle full of business cards. We don't know where that is today. We don't know anything about it. We'd learn an awful lot more about Grand Canyon history if we did know about it. The other thing that was advertised in the paper were short boat rides on the river in Grand Canyon, which obviously is right at the head of Diamond Creek Rapid. Some newspaper ads. It's really difficult to open the newspaper and not find ads or articles or something about Farlee during this era. But at any rate, in 1885, $5 was the equivalent of $140 today. And I mention this because when the Wallapais charge you $75, historically it's a good deal, right? Stories of Farlee's enterprise really did not take up any space in the newspaper. These are just a couple of examples. There are lots of examples like this, but We went down there, it was hotter than hell. We had, cabbage, and then we rode the stagecoach back. It's pretty much the story. Farlee was never out of business. I want to make this real clear. He was never out of business, but he was without business, okay? Just because of the way the whole thing operated. So he leased the stage line in '89 to a couple folks, and in 1891 he leased it to Bill Bass, who I don't think was involved very long, because in 1895 his wife Celia offered the stage line and the hotel to the Atlantic and Pacific Railway, but they were not interested because they had taken up with John Hance. Okay, so Julius Farlee died on March 18th, 1901. 10 days before he died, he signed over all his possessions to his wife Celia in a $12 bill of sale, and that's it right there on the left, okay? And it was Celia who after Farlee died, just let the place fall apart. She went into the cattle business, and she was really tired of trying to have a tourist enterprise down there. Okay, next, John Hance operated the first hotel on the rim and made the first trail into Grand Canyon. There's a lot of folklore about John Hance, beginning with his asbestos mine didn't pay. You've all heard this 100 times. His asbestos mine didn't pay, so he started mining tourist pockets, right? Oh, no, you have to forget about that. You have to leave that one behind and kind of move into what's actually happening with John Hance. The papers for John Hance's asbestos mine recorded in Yavapai County are on the left, and that happened in 1891, and it's signed by William Henry Ashurst. John Hance had nothing to do with the Hance asbestos mine. That's part of the legacy, the lore, the legend of John Hance. On the right is just an ordinal list, and I have a copy here if anybody wants to see it, of all the mines that John Hance was involved with in Grand Canyon. The one in blue is the only one. It's out of 56 locations that have his name on the piece of paper. That is the only one that he recorded, staked, and did all the assessment work by himself. He just hung out with these guys and tagged along with them. Is basically what he did. But see, they don't begin until 1891, and that's like 8 years after he came to Grand Canyon. What actually did happen was that in June of 1884, he had some folks out there from the newspaper, and they wrote this article, front page, The Temples of the Gods, but they didn't publish it until February of the following year, when he was actually ready for business. So John Hance was in business then, and skipping ahead a little bit, here's John Hance's first advertisement in the newspaper on the left, and on the right, the little teaser that went elsewhere on the same page, perfectly familiar, the pioneer. John Hance is the go-to guy. This is Grand Canyon Interpretive Center and Visitor Complex between 1886 and 1893. It looks a little different then than it does now, okay? But this is it. This is John This is John Hance's cabin. Here are the tourist cabins. The outhouse is right behind the camera, and the rim is right here. You could not see Grand Canyon from Hance's place, and this is called Glendale Springs. That's John Hance's homestead. John Hance's what we call now Old Hance Trail began in the northeast corner of Hance's homestead property, dropped down Hance's Canyon to Hance's Creek to the superintendent's winter residence during that same time. By the way, here's Thomas Moran right here. After a lunch of canned tomatoes, hardtack, and coffee, you drop down into the Precambrian rock. This is called Moran's Falls. This is a William Henry Jackson photograph from 1892. Moran is in this photo somewhere, and Jackson obviously took it. Okay, but this is John Hance right here holding the rope, right? And after that, Old Hance Trail continued to the head of Sockdolager Rapid. When you got there, there's nothing to do but turn around and go home, climb back up the waterfall, essentially. So when people say, oh, John Hance built a trail to his asbestos mine, no, he built it to Sockdolager Rapid. How many of you have a copy of this book? Real quickly? Just a few of you. Okay, some of you are familiar with it, right? It's a facsimile edition of the real thing, which is alive and well at the Arizona Historical Society Museum and Archives in Tucson. Features autograph of John Wesley Powell, right? Buffalo Bill Cody in 1892. And while we're in 1892, I would like to point out this is a poster that has a big graphic, which you can still see at Charlotte Hall Museum, if you ask for it, if you search it out. John Hance's name is all over this one. He was featured in 2 articles in Scientific American that summer. He was the focal point of Grand Canyon of the Colorado River, which was published by the Santa Fe Railway Department. This is the frontispiece from that article, and you'll see, according to the Santa Fe, you only have one place to go at Grand Canyon, and that would be Hance's Ranch. Okay? And the reason I bring this up is because I think 1892, more than any other year, is the time when John Hance and Grand Canyon became synonymous. You couldn't have one without the other. You went to Grand Canyon and you saw John Hance, it was all the same thing. Okay. Lyman Toll-Free for the railroad moved in and took control of Cedar Ranch and Hance's homestead in 1893. He leased Hance's trail with Bill Hull, who some of you probably know that name, a local rancher. Hull Barn and all that's just right up the street here. But that arrangement only lasted for 5 years at today's equivalent of $8,000 a year. That arrangement only lasted 1 year because nearby at Grandview Point, Peter, don't call him Pete, Barry, was active. Ralph Cameron had recorded the Grandview Trail that went to the Last Chance Copper Mine, which won the first prize in the Columbian Exposition that year. Peter Barry had recorded the Bright Angel Trail in January of 1891. So by 1893, the whole landscape at Grand Canyon had changed, okay? And Hance his personality kept him going, okay? But everybody else was moving in. Grand Canyon no longer belonged to John Hance, as it were. Okay, William Wallace Bass will be next. He's always called the Grand Canyon Pioneer. You see that a lot, like Hance built the trail to his asbestos mine. I beg to differ. I really don't agree with this. And let's start at the beginning. It's often said that Bass went to Grand Canyon as a miner, and that's not accurate because these are his first 2 recorded locations, and they weren't made until 1898. What did happen in Bass's life is when he got off the train, he homesteaded 160 acres just east of today's downtown Williams. And then we find Bass in the paper, but we don't find him like John Hance. John Hance is connected to Grand Canyon. Bass is one of the oldest, prominent rancher and stockman of Williams, one of the oldest places in that town, and a nice ranch there, okay? In November 11th, 1888, he takes a chattel mortgage out, and his occupation is listed as a rancher. If it was John Hance, it would be listed as a guide. A year later, he has a He's listed as another chattel mortgage. He's listed, again, as a stock raiser, not as a guide or anything else. Not to say he's not involved somehow in Havasupai. Okay, I got you, thanks. Not to say he's not involved with Havasupai, that's understood. Okay, but he's not physically related to Grand Canyon yet. And here's how I think that happened. This is John Marshall's plat for some mines that he and Bill Ashurst located right here on the red dot. It was recorded April 9th, 1890. The Rimrock and River Road, this is the trail that Marshall wanted to build down to that, down to those mines. When you drop a plat of Coconino County's Grand Canyon onto that, what happens is you come up dead center almost to Gila Salt River Meridian in Grand Canyon, and another way to say that is Havasupai Point or Bass Canyon. I think what happened was Bass, involved elsewhere, learned of these discoveries which did not pan out, and those guys moved on, and Bass came in. It's only after that event that Bass is seen in the newspapers related to Grand Canyon. Here are two articles, and in this one up here, he wants you to have to be a Democrat in order to ride the train. So he really sort of rubbed people the wrong way a lot of the time. Also, more importantly, to Havasupai Point, Mystic Springs Trail, or as you would know it today, South Bass Trail, was not recorded by the Coconino County Recorder until August 4th, 1891. And he did not join a road from Williams to that place until November 1st, 1891. So that's why I say I think Bass was certifiably active out there in 1891, early 1892. Here's where it is. If you've never been, it's a great, long, interesting drive out there. Take your lunch. This is the first photograph I've found of the place from 1894. Okay. Finally, in terms of the folklore has grown legs and walked around all by itself since for at least 100 years. Okay, because right here on the upper same page of the same newspaper, here's Bill Bass, who's founder of the first trail into Grand Canyon. A little bit further down the trail, down the page is Captain John Hance, now a benign septuagenarian who built the first trail into Grand Canyon. So only one of those is right, but just to illustrate, this whole thing is gone haywire for a long time. Okay. To conclude, Diamond Creek, then and now, Glendale Springs, about 1900 and now, South Bass Trailhead, about 1904 and now. And my conclusions from this are that the train brought the tourist. It actively advertised and promoted Grand Canyon, and that's when industrial Grand Canyon tourism as we know it began. Farlee, Hance, and Bass have become historic characters, especially Hance and Bass. And we need to dial back on that and really get back to some cold, hard facts about who these people were. I think it would be a big help. The Colorado River should have a Farlee Rapid. And we have, because it has a Bass Rapid and a Hance Rapid, and we have a brand new big bad rapid right down there in Farlee's neighborhood, and that's a fine time to do that. Farlee, Hance, and Bass hotel locations deserve kiosks, informative kiosks to tell people what happened there. And finally, Old Hance Trailhead, which you can stand this close to and have no idea you're there. The first several hundred or thousand or however many people to go down Grand Canyon went down that trail, and that should be acknowledged. Thank you very much for your attention.